What is up, everybody? This is Lyle with No Hippie Trucking and Transportation, and I just finished another what I would call a successful week in leasing at PrimeInc. Like I said, I'm not going to dig all into the numbers and everything, but I thought it was pretty successful. Now, before I get on to the topic of this video, for all you all you people that ride high, this is for you. Man, I see some of you guys out there on the road that are sitting so high in the seat, it's almost like you're bending down to see the road and everything. I'm just joking, but anyway, I'm kind of a low rider myself. But anyway, I've been talking about, the lease that I did with Prime. And for a lot of people that haven't seen like some of the old videos, when I first considered going to Prime, I was primarily gonna stay a company driver. After thinking about it a little bit and a few things that I thought were important to me, I did go ahead and change my mind and go lease. And again, money was not the main factor on why I went lease. Now, listen, here's what I'm gonna say. There was a time when, everybody was pro lease. It seemed like now it's kind of a little bit of a backlash I'm seeing where, things are kind of switching back more towards company. And here's what I'm going to say about leasing and why I would I would put a lot of thought into it before you go into leasing. Some questions you might want to ask yourself is, and this would be kind of drastic, but still questions you might want to ask. Are you capable of going 3 months without a paycheck? Not that that can happen, or it can happen, but not that I would think that that's going to happen, but you have to have that mindset. Are you looking for something to be stable? If you're looking for something that's going to be more stable, maybe the company route might be the route to go. Do you have a lot of debt? And I'm not talking about mortgage debt. To me, that's just something that, I don't consider that to be debt. But if your mortgage is out of control, maybe, that's something to take in consideration. But if you have a lot of debt, maybe, the lease situation isn't the right program for you. Do you have a family and you're the sole breadwinner or the person that's going to provide the medical insurance? Do you have any other avenues of saving or investing outside of a 401k or something like that? Or are you capable of setting something up like that on your own? The medical insurance is a big one. Now, one thing I will say, after looking at, when I went through orientation, they were kind of talking about the medical insurance, and I really didn't pay much attention to it because my wife had it. But if I remember correctly, the numbers that they were throwing around, even on the company side, weren't, it seemed to be quite a bit higher than what my wife is paying for us on her insurance. And I could only imagine what it would be like if you're getting insurance on the open market. So that's something that you might want to take in consideration as well. How are you with money? Just because of the business I came out of, I've always been in a saving mindset or a non-spending mindset. I've always lived like I'm not going to get paid again. So are you capable of living like that? If you're somebody that spends it when they got it, maybe the lease isn't the way for you to go. I think maturity might have a lot to do with it, and I don't mean maturity as far as age, because shout out to my man Isaiah. He's probably not watching this video, but youngin', 21 years old, was in my orientation and everything, and he's out there killing it. But then again, my girl Crystal, that was in my orientation, and we actually did PSD on the pad in Salt Lake City together, she's a company driver, and she's killing it. So really put some thought into it. There's a channel out there called Trucking Along with Kiersey. I'm going to leave a link to that channel in the iCard above. Just click on this little banner that goes up there. And she's, I think she might be a little too pro company, maybe a little too company biased, but she does make a lot of points in that video or in her videos. And one thing I want to say is, some of the liability that you're placing on yourself when you're going lease is, some of these cargo claims, if they're negligent, some of the numbers that they're talking about on these claims, I don't think that, to me, it almost seems like cartoon figures for some people, because they may not be able to, they may not know what $100,000 feels like, or what it's like to have $100,000. So it almost goes over some people's heads, I think, when you're talking numbers. It'd be like somebody telling me, if something goes wrong, you might be liable for $1 billion. That number's so big that I really can't even comprehend it. So I may not even take it serious. But, that's something that you really want to, think about. I think she has a video on her channel talking about cargo claims and things of that nature. How good of a driver are you? That's one thing. I spent 7 months with my trainer. A lot of those months, I'd wanted to stay on anyway, because I don't think that you could be over prepared. So I was going to stay on a little bit longer. And then once I was thinking about the lease option, I really didn't want to start my lease until the beginning of the year. So I stayed on even longer. So, if you just got out of PSD, or not PSD, TNT, and you've had critical events, or you're really not comfortable driving, or you're unsecure with your back end, or things like that, you might want to consider going company and play bumper cars with their shit. Because if you bump into somebody's car out here, you're going to get hit with that deductible. So that's something else to think about. I want to go back to that, maturity thing. And again, it's not only just mental maturity, but financial maturity. And I think you can kind of grow into it as well. But if you already have that kind of, and I hate to say entrepreneurial, because it seems like that name that's thrown out there so much. But if you have that kind of spirit, if you look at me, all my jobs have been commission in my life. And even as a company driver, you're going to be, your job is almost commission based, because you're based on production, but even more so in the lease. But even, the only jobs I've ever had in my life where I wasn't commissioned was Burger King when I was 14. Well, between 14 and 17, the Marine Corps. And that's pretty much it. I mean, back in my thugging days, I started off my sales career in high school, going to the store, and I'm not proud of this, but going to the store and stealing abundance of, back in the days, everybody was chewing and doing all this kind of stuff. So I was going to the store, stealing chew, candy, all this kind of stuff, and going to school and selling it. So I've always kind of had that little mindset. Now, you're not going to be making 100% profit while you're out here doing this lease, but I want to do this video to caution you, or not necessarily caution you, but give you something to think about when you think about going lease. And also, I've been seeing a few, not necessarily, well, I'm going to call them negative videos in terms of leasing and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people, I think the younger you are, and I'm going to call anybody under 35 young to me, the younger you are, the shorter the distance is that you look ahead. So I'm seeing people that are having a bad month or a bad week or bad, even couple months. I'm like, you know what? If you think you're going to cry about having a couple bad months or a couple bad weeks, the lease may not be for you. I've been out here exactly a month, and it's the money that I'm making has exceeded the expectations that I actually had going into this. So, like I said, for various reasons, I'm not going to get into those numbers specifically. Maybe if you're interested, email me and we could talk or something like that. We can go that route. But, I don't want anybody to think that, first of all, I don't want anybody to think I'm lying. Like, you ain't making that much money. I just saw somebody else do a video and they're only making this. Or, just saying that I'm not making enough money and I'm stupid to be doing it or something like that. One thing I could tell you is I'm far from stupid, especially when it comes to, well, I might be stupid with my money. I've made a lot of good decisions with my money, but I've probably made some that could have been better as well in my lifetime. But one thing I'll tell you is I won't go down in a situation that I just don't think makes sense. So if I got into this lease, or if I'm in this lease, let's say, you got to give it at least 6 months. I mean, this is considered, everybody's saying this is the worst time of the year. If this is the worst time of the year, I have the best fleet manager, or, I'm not too much of a religious person, but God may be on my side or whatever. But, after 6 months, I'll evaluate the situation, in a little bit more depth personally and see if it still is making sense for me to do this as far as the lease goes. Somebody, I think when I'm talking about this situation, I think I'm a lot different than a lot of people that are coming to Prime. There's a lot of people that are coming to Prime that are young. I've seen people that just didn't really even have like any money. I gave somebody $10 or $15, and it was like I was like giving them thousands of dollars, and I felt comfortable leasing because I have oh, you know what? Before I even, forget all that. It doesn't matter what I have. Listen, if you're thinking about buying a house, definitely this is something that you need to consider. Now, a lease is a great program for people that want to write off even more money on their taxes, things like that. Take advantage of that if you have everything in place already. If you don't have everything in place, do not lease, go W-2 before you buy your house, because if you get into a lease, first of all, it's going to take 2 years for you to show all this money. And secondly, if you're writing off a bunch of your expenses, they're not going to take the big number, and I'm not talking about the gross number. They're going to take your net that you net, they're going to subtract out taxes, and then anything that you wrote out, or they're not going to subtract out the taxes. They're going to, anything that you wrote off in your business, they're going to subtract from your income. So you're going to have a lower adjusted gross income. Therefore, you're going to qualify for less of a house. One of the reasons I'm leasing is so I can take advantage of some of these more aggressive tax strategies and things like that I can do on the lease that I can't do on going company. But there's other things that are involved in my taxes as well. So not everybody's going to have a rental property. Not everybody else is going to have, other things like that make their taxes a little bit more complicated, where they're looking for more write-offs and things like that. So really think about it. I mean, don't go to Prime or whatever company you're going to go to and lease because everybody else is leasing. Or you've heard people talk about how much money they're making leasing, and don't go to Prime and be a company driver because you've heard, people, say you ain't making no money on leasing, or, whatever it is. Take all this information that you're getting. There's a lot of channels out there about Prime. I've heard, if you want to hear the negative thing about Prime, just type in PrimeInc Lease, and I'm sure there's at least 3 people that I've seen that weren't making enough money, or they were deadheading too much, or whatever the situation was. And you know what? Every story everybody says in their videos, I 100% believe. So get all this information, make your own mind up, but realize if you are getting into a lease, you're going to be assuming a lot more responsibility. Maybe for some of you guys, more responsibility than you've ever had to deal with in your life. So just wanted to put that out there as a little bit of a cautionary tale. Hopefully I'm on my way home. I haven't got a load sent to me. I'm sitting out here in Laverne, Tennessee. Just dropped off this load. It's like payday cutoff or something like that. I don't really care when the money comes in, this week, next week. It all spins the same. But if I could get it on this week, from the way things look on paper, this would be like an extremely good week. If it doesn't, it'll be a good week. Anyway, thanks for stopping by No Hippie Truck and Transportation. I appreciate it. Comment, subscribe. I'm out.